wherever you are, whoever you love, and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. The first, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The second, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The third, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. The fourth, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The fifth, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The sixth, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And the seventh, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
Good morning, and welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. If you are new to SMUUCh and want to get to know more about our church, please fill out our Get in Touch form using the link in the video description. For all of you joining us live this morning, feel free to start posting your joys and sorrows now if you would like the names to be read during the candle lighting. And now, a few announcements from our minister.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Rose, the minister of SMUUCh. It is a joy to see you and an honor to be broadcast into your homes. As an opening public service announcement, I want to remind you that today is Ice Cream Sunday, National Ice Cream Day. So make sure that you give yourself a little treat today. And if you can't eat ice cream, just do something sweet for yourself. In these times, we must be intentional about enjoying the little things. Now, we as a church are forging ahead with our meaningful ministry during the time of COVID-19. We are so lucky to have beautiful grounds here at church, committed volunteers who can support the broadcast on Sunday mornings, and access to Zoom and virtual communications. It is our sincerest wish to provide you with spaces of healing, connection, and spiritual growth. That said, we know it's hard to connect these days. It's awkward and lonely, but I have a special message for you. In these times of disconnection, we as a church want to see you. We want to know how you're doing out there, to know what you are doing and what you're dealing with. We want to hear from you. There are so many opportunities to connect with this church. Online fellowship hour right after the service, small groups, the daily 5:30 Zoom call, adult religious education, volunteering in virtual RE, working in the vast and beautiful gardens here at church, even just posting to the Facebook page. We invite you to come on Tuesdays to the food pantry to either get free food for your family, pick up for someone else, or hand out food. Connecting could even be just calling each other regularly or just saying hi in the chat on Sunday mornings. These times, they are a change-in, and I think that part of that change is us being a little bit more willing to put ourselves out there. So, when a time comes later in the service for you to participate in the chat, you just go ahead and type your word in. And be sure to tell each other that you see each other, affirm each other. Lastly, if you are interested in taking the first step to get more involved with this church or just learning about our beautiful Unitarian Universalism, please join us for our Just the Basics class. It will be held on the second Sunday of each month. Together, we are better. Together, we are a courageous church. Come, let us worship. Please join us for our opening hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Please join me as we light our chalice and affirm that love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Welcome to your Rainbow Altar Time! Even though we can't come to church right now, we can support our own spiritual practices by creating sacred space around us. This is a practice for the kiddos of all ages.
We encourage you to use a small surface in your space to place precious objects, such as your at-home chalice, photos of your loved ones, or meaningful quotes.
An altar allows you to create a peaceful spot and can aid in your sense of safety and belonging in your space. It doesn't have to take up much room and is just a thing of meaning and beauty. It is a reminder that we are still a congregational community, and it's something that we can all do together, even though we are apart.
Each week, we, as an intergenerational community, are invited to work on our own personal altars together. As the weeks go by, we will add a different color of the rainbow to aid you in your spiritual practice.
The rainbow represents the diversity, resilience, and beauty of the world, and so we add the color yellow to our rainbow altar.
You can write a quote you love in a yellow marker, or cut out a shape from a yellow piece of paper. You can put a yellow object, light a yellow candle, or just put a lemon on there.
The color yellow symbolizes sunshine, warmth, and using your mind. As you add to your rainbow altar with the color yellow, you can ask yourself, what brings your mind alive? What illuminates your thinking? Can you find a way to show that? What do you hope to learn? What brings you brightness? This is the time in our service where we expand the caring love of our community, where we draw to heart and mind those in our midst who are suffering and those who feel the relief of their burdens easing. We give our love to those untangling themselves from relationships that no longer serve them. We grieve for the loss of energy and time that chronic illness takes upon the body, and our hearts go out to all who are struggling to make ends meet. We extend our gratitude and support to all people who make caring for children their primary spiritual practice, and we join in wonder with all people who are bravely facing their final days. I invite you now to just briefly envision someone who you know is struggling, someone who you love. It could be someone at church, someone in your neighborhood, someone in your family. Just take a moment to hold them in your hearts. Send them a smile, a well wish, strength, a prayer. As always, we rejoice over the exquisite beauty in this world, as small or life-changing as each piece of beauty might be. And now please comment in the comment section of the live chat your joy or sorrow. Remember, this moment of sharing happens online and remains public for all viewers today. To join us further together in the beloved community, we will read out loud the names of those who posted joys and sorrows while I light the candles.
Elizabeth, for her brother and his cat who has a mass on his liver. For Jen, with the joy that she is waiting on the printed proof of her book. For Nubia, thanks for this SMUUCh community. Patrice, a joy for her brother and father. In a ceremony that they had. A sorrow for the schools and teachers and all the parents struggling with reopening. A candle for the Weaver family. Jan, a concern for her son and his partner who are in Portland. And we light the remaining candles for all the joys and all the sorrows that remain unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts.
Let us become mindful again. I invite you to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, to offer yourself that gentleness and kindness. You can close your eyes, put your feet flat on the floor. Just take a moment to notice where you can feel your breath in your rib cage, letting the corners of your lips turn up. Let us invite an ease into this moment, remembering that rest is restorative and that the time to rest is now. This moment in our service is for you to just receive, to breathe deeply and take what comes to you, to be open and expansive, for it is said that although a spoonful of salt in a cup of water makes it undrinkable, a spoonful of salt in a lake makes no difference at all. Thus, we must take extra efforts towards self-love and spiritual expansion because the pains of life are amplified by isolation, financial stress, physical and mental illness, injustice, and uncertainty. So I encourage you to take a lot of extra care, rest a lot, be outside a lot, because you are doing sacred work when you simply breathe, rest, and come to know this world through your spiritual self. And now let us take a moment of silence, and during this silence, I invite you to meditate on what your prayer is for this world, what your well-wish is for all the aching that you see happening. As you sit silently, just formulate a word and say it over and over in your mind, breathing deeply. And now we want to hear from you. I invite you to type what your prayer or your well-wish is into the chat. It could be as simple as a word: repair, grace, healing, love. It means so much to everyone joining us today to hear from you. And while you do this, we will sing to you our reflective hymn, There Is More Love Somewhere.
Today, our reading comes from Georgia Congressman John Lewis, an avid and consistent advocate for justice and human rights who passed away this week at the age of 80. May he rest in power. These words come from his book, Across That Bridge, A Vision for Change and the Future of America. He says, "You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Study the paths of others to make your way easier and more abundant. Lean toward the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Choose confrontation wisely, but when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers is yours to manifest in a nation, a world community, a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself."
The battle of good to overcome evil is already won, said Representative John Lewis. Now, how could he have said this? John Lewis, a man whose entire life was spent railing against the injustices which ravage our land. John Lewis, the son of a sharecropper who knew the evils in this land, but somehow he also knew that the battle of good to overcome evil was over. As many of us are currently waking up to this knowledge that systemic evil is apparent everywhere, as we lean into this life where every day we experience uncertainty, danger, isolation, and grief, I believe that we will find a deeper peace if we take a cue from John Lewis and remember that we can know in many ways. That it is possible to know two things that compete with each other, both being true. That a single container could never contain our multitudes. And even that it is these paradoxical knowledges which lead us down the path to self-realization and wholeness. So first, a little exercise. I invite you to close your eyes and ask yourself, what is something that I know right now? It can be anything. And just take a moment to think about it and ask yourself, how do I know this? How do I know this? Now, remember this thing that you know and put a pin in it for later. So let us speak about these ways that we know. One way of knowing is intellectually. We can know something because it makes sense, because we can say it out loud and be telling the truth. For example, we know that the nation is experiencing trauma right now because we read on the news about the medical and political strife that is going on everywhere. And one day, we will know that it is safe to gather because we learned facts that help us make decisions. Indeed, Lewis said that we ought to study the paths of others to make our own way easier and more abundant. But as a society, we rely heavily on this particular way of knowing. We prize intellect, articulation, and the written word, which of course is not bad in itself, but it certainly limits our quality of life if that is the only way of knowing that we habitually practice. For example, another way of knowing is that we know in our bodies. We can know in our bodies immediately if something is wrong or right. In these bodies, we have felt knowledges of what good love feels like, of what safety feels like. We know what it feels like to be relaxed, and we know what it feels like to be suddenly afraid, and all of that we know in our bodies. We know how much one deep breath can change our whole day. We know how one musical moment can send a tingle down our spine. So let us continue with our practice. Close your eyes and just ask yourself, what do you know in your body right now? Feel that felt knowledge and allow yourself to feel these words from Representative Lewis, but feel them in your body. You are a light. You are the light. I wonder, can you know lightness in your body? You may open your eyes. When we draw our attention to our physical knowing, we find ourselves suddenly aware in a different way. We find ourselves being much more gentle, slower. Indeed, the body was our first way of knowing, for the body is how tiny babies know. In all the other ways of knowing, we progress as we age, but physically, we're just big babies, and we need just as much gentleness and care as an infant. Another way of knowing is intuitive knowledge. This is when we just know things, when a gut feeling pulls us towards something. Now, this knowledge is very bright in the rituals that give our lives meaning. I recently was speaking to a member of this church who described scattering her husband's ashes. She said that she walked and walked through his favorite woods, waiting until she knew it was the right spot. This process, this intuitive process, afforded her hours and hours of sensing her loved one, and ultimately gave her great peace and closure. Let us close our eyes and practice this intuitive knowing for a moment. As Lewis puts it, to lean towards the whisper of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. You may open your eyes. When we know something intuitively, we may not even be able to put it into words because it's a sense, a sixth sense, some may say. And for most of us, our work around the intuition is to trust that this knowledge is a legitimate and deeply valuable way of making choices. And this brings us to our second to last way of knowing through the imagination. Knowing with our imagination is, as Lewis says, the poetry of all the great dreamers. For our dreams have things in them. It's that great storyteller power to walk ahead and lay pavers, to lead us places we don't know about yet. For when we know with our imagination, we are taking a wrench to our soul and cranking it open, flooding ourselves with those possibility vibes. Because there is something that can only happen in our daydreams, that expand and elevate us. Something about reaching that always results in growth. Something about storytelling and story weaving that pulls us forward into a buoyant, creative, poetic space, without which, where would we be? So let us just practice this for a moment. Close your eyes or leave them open and just imagine something happening in your space. Something that is pure story, pure daydream. It does not have to make sense or be possible. You may open your eyes. And now we come to our last way of knowing, spiritual knowledge. This is our ancestral knowledge. This is the state we enter into when we meditate or pray or intentionally reach out or inward for connection. It can happen whenever we engage in activities that connect us to each other, to ourselves, to the divine. But how do we get here? How do we come to this place of spiritual knowledge? And what even is it? Well, I think that Mr. Lewis left us more than a few hints. But just in this reading that Spring read, let's see. He told us that he studied the paths of others and that he heard the poetry of their daydreams, that he saw that they were the light and thus figured that he must too be a light. And so he leaned in toward the whispers of his own heart, discovered the universal truths, and followed the heart's dictates. And there he found the deepest way of knowing, which he told us occurs only when we hold love and peace in the heart and when we stand up and act for justice. Let's practice this spiritual knowing for 1 second. Close your eyes. Draw your attention to your breath. And let these words come to you. Hold only love, only peace in your heart. Speak out, knowing that the battle for good to overcome evil is already won. You may open your eyes. Now, that's a lot to ask. And so I think Representative Lewis must have made a choice, a deep choice, to know the goodness of this world in a myriad of ways. It seems to me that he was intentional about going out and knowing goodness, that he was intentional about knowing justice, intentional about believing in wholeness, careful to believe that the arc of the universe is long, but that it bends towards justice. What I glean from his writings is that in order to know spiritually, we have to make a choice to know in all the other ways. And here are the steps that I see him telling us to do. To sense out intuitively the spaces where our bodies are safe, where people are talking about their dreams for this world, where people are studying the paths of others to make all of our lives more abundant, where people are striving to have love in their hearts, and then we will know that we already have made it, that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Now let us come back briefly to what I asked you at the start and draw to mind what you knew, what you thought you knew, what you did know at the beginning of this sermon. And I invite you just to sit with it for one moment and wonder, which way of knowing did I know this? Was it with your intellect, your body, your intuition, your imagination, your spirit? And could you view it from a different knowledge? And now you can keep your eyes closed and let us listen to Lewis's words one more time and practice for one moment identifying which way of knowing each part of this poem resonates with, which way of knowing you use to listen to this poem, and maybe try a different way. You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Study the path of others to make your way easier and more abundant. Lean toward the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Choose confrontation wisely, but when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of the great dreamers and philosophers is yours. Yours to manifest in a nation, a world community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself. Amen, and blessed be.
The work of the church depends on us. In the context of global and national strife, what does it mean to participate in the work of the church? What does the work of the church look like in times of great calling. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of this church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops way above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please join us as we sing the closing hymn, number 1064, Blue Boat Home.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. urging me on. Read the infinite scene before me. Sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
This week, afford yourself some awareness around your ways of knowing as you make choices. Stop, check in with how you're knowing, and don't forget to celebrate National Ice Cream Day. Go in peace.